Good evening, welcome along to this week's Women's Football Chat. This is your home for all things FAWNL. Over the last 7 days, it's tiers 3 and 4 of women's football here in England and Wales. And although there's not been a huge amount of action on the pitch, there has been quite a bit off it. So we've got plenty to talk about this week, and we should still get a good length on today's show. So we will crack straight on with the news. First bit of news, League Cup final between Nottingham Forest and Stoke City has now been confirmed as a 3:30 kickoff on the 22nd of March, which is the Saturday, and that is going to also be broadcast on BBC iPlayer. So 3:30 o'clock on the Saturday afternoon, 22nd of March, Forest against Stoke City. Forest looking to win the cup for the second time in just 3 seasons, and they go for the double. Stoke, of course, still very much in amongst it in the Northern Premier Division, but of course we will come on to that later on. So that's kind of a bit of just information, really, just dropping in this week. So let's have a look at some news from the Northern Premier Division, and with Halifax Women, who say that they are disappointed to announce that Rob Mitchell has made the difficult decision to step down as head coach of Halifax Women, but at the end of the season. Mitchell is currently on the UEFA A licence course, has held the role at Halifax since 2013, leading the club from Tier 7 to Tier 3. The club has gone from strength to strength under Mitchell's stewardship, and despite the struggles over the last 12 months, we hope the foundations laid will lead to future success on and off the pitch, with several exciting announcements to come in the coming weeks and months. So plenty for us to keep our eye on from Halifax Women. We'd like to place on record our eternal gratitude and appreciation for Rob's commitment, loyalty, dedication and effort. We wish him well with whatever comes next in his personal and football journey. The process in appointing a new head coach will now begin as we plan for the 25-26 season. Our full focus is on securing Tier 3 status, and we look forward to the next chapter in the club's history. So I think anyone who's been around Halifax Women will know just how much Rob Mitchell has done for that club. So they said they're taking them from Tier 7 all the way up to Tier 3. Yes, they've had a difficult year. Their aim is on securing Tier 3 status. That is going to be a big ask, but they will give it a very good go. And then Rob is stepping away, so we'll await to see what happens in the off-season, who goes to Halifax Women and takes charge next season, be it in Tier 3 or Tier 4 North. And then still in the Northern Premier Division, we're going to go to West Bromwich Albion. Siobhan Hodgett still has been named the full-time women's manager. It's the club's first full-time women's manager. Of course, other clubs in the Northern Premier Division, your likes of Forest, your Wolves, there's other clubs in there as well, have got to this stage already. West Brom now the next one to do this. The role is an expansion of her prior remit as head coach, and the first step towards making the women's side a full-time professional side. I think that's a really key line in there as well. It just shows that Newcastle went full-time, they're now in the Championship. Forest have gone pretty much full-time and are probably the favourites now at this point to go up to the Championship as well. Other clubs are starting to do this, and we're seeing now how Tier 3 in the next few years may be more full-time than part-time and amateur, and it's going to get even more difficult to get out of that league. The team was incorporated by the club in June of last year, having previously been a separate company. And the new role is another significant phase in the long-term vision of Albion owners Baikal. So, again, it's another one where you've got these teams and they are taking it more seriously. The men's clubs, they're incorporating the women's clubs. The women's game is being taken much more seriously than it was a few years ago. They can see the benefits to this. It's going to make it much more difficult to, I think, winning a title is obviously always difficult, but I think the more teams are going for it and going for that one spot, because we've still only got one spot, even with this expansion of the league, there's still only going to be one spot. It's going to make it much more difficult, and I think the risk, not just with West Brom, but with all the clubs, is if you've got a club that constantly finishes second, maybe even just on goal difference, which is kind of common in this league, that the owner's then going to go, well, we're giving you this money to get into the championship, you're not getting into the championship, and if they then pull the money in, there is the slight concern perhaps that the amount that goes into the women's team is still based on the success of the men's team. But we'll see what happens with that. I would not be surprised if this was not the only news in Tier 3 between now and the start of next season about clubs pouring more money in, managers becoming full-time, players becoming full-time, and more like that happening. But that covers everything in Tier 3, the Northern Premier Division. Let's go through to the Southern Premier Division, because Plymouth Argyle's women's head coach Ryan Perks has left the club by mutual agreement. He's been there since August 2020 and has not only overseen the progression of the first team, but also played a pivotal role in improving the provision of coaching for women and girls in the area, helping to develop the Argyle player pathway. Prior to his stint as head coach, Ryan also spent time working for the Argyle Community Trust and the Argyle Academy, and they thank Ryan for his service to both club and trust and wish him nothing but the best in the future. The Academy coach James Bradley will take over as the women's head coach for the rest of the season and will be in the dugout when they host Billericay Town at Home Park this weekend. That's a huge game at the bottom of Tier 3. He'll be assisted by Dan Greenock, who works with Bradley and with the under-16s, with Matt Green and John Dorr, who oversaw Argyle's 2 recent victories. So, yeah, big change at Plymouth Argyle as well. And that's, again, really pivotal time of the season. Only a couple of months left of it, 6 games or so. Huge game this weekend, and there's been a change in the coaching staff at Plymouth. We'll see if that affects them at all going into this weekend. And then we're going to look at something we don't normally look at on the Women's Football Chat, which is the reserve section. Now, the reason we're looking at this is because it's been announced today, it was announced this week, actually by Moneyfields is where I saw it first, that the FA Women's National League Reserves divisions have confirmed the introduction of a special tournament following the conclusion of the league season. Now, this is, obviously, these are championships for the reserve sections. You've got your normal leagues at the minute, and then you've got these championships, Northern Championship and Southern Championship. Not all teams are taking part in this, and it's a case of playing each other twice, home and away. So Moneyfields are in this tournament. In the southern side, so in the Northern Championship, it's Huddersfield Town, Liverpool Feds, Peterborough United, Sporting Cowser and Stockport County. And in the Southern Reserves Championship, it's Exeter City, Keynsham Town, Moneyfields and Queen's Park Rangers. Each team will play each other twice, home and away, so it's a 6-team tournament. And Moneyfields will kick off the tournament at home against Queen's Park Rangers on March the 23rd. So it's a new kind of little tournament for the reserves at the end of the season, because essentially they just haven't really been playing the games that they'd have wanted to play. I mean, the reserve section, we look at the Reserve Southwest League, it's a 6-team league, so you're only playing 10 games. Not really, particularly a great league. If you're a reserve player and you're only playing 10 games a season, competitive games, so they do need something else. But it's okay, because the reserves are all just going to get shoved into Tier 6 in a couple of years, and then that will solve everything. The reason I'm bringing this up on the show is because the league have said, as they normally do with the reserves, absolutely nothing. And so we've heard it from a club rather than hearing it from the league. And we'll come on to more silence from the league in a few moments. So let's go on to the Northern Premier Division results. Of course, it was this weekend just gone, the County Cup weekend. So it's a very short process to go through all of these this week. We'll start with that huge game towards the top. Forest 1, Wolves 1. Melissa Johnson in the 19th minute put Forest ahead. Charlotte Greengrass in 30 seconds after the break equalised for Wolves. It finished 1-1. That is probably a better result for Forest than it is for Wolves, because Forest have now ticked another game off where they've not lost any ground. And Wolves now, of course, have one less game where they have the opportunity to gain on Forest. And in fact, Forest, it was a relatively good weekend for them because they have gained a point on Burnley, who lost by 3-2 at home to Stoke City. Stoke, of course, beat them in the cup semi-final to get into that final against Forest. Now they've beaten them again in the league. Amelia Hazard had put Burnley in front on the 20th minute before Shannon Stamps in the 47th minute equalised for Stoke. 2 then for Millie Ravening, 52nd and 60th minute made it 3-1. Brendan McPartland got one back to make it 3-2 with 13 minutes to go. But Stoke were able to hold on for a very big 3 points against Burnley. And then also Liverpool Feds beating Hull City by 2-0. Emma Johnson and Katie Anderson with the goals in that game for Feds. And they get another 3 points. So the league table then in the Northern Premier Division, as we've said there. So Forest are still 3 points clear of Wolves in second. They are now, though, 5 points clear of Burnley in third. Burnley still have that game in hand. That game in hand is against Halifax. You would imagine they would win that game. So you've got to kind of look at it as a 2-point gap against Burnley. But following that result, and we'll start to look now as we get into this really, towards the end of the season, we can look at run-ins and things like that. If you look at Forest's run-in, you would imagine that Forest would get at least 15 points from their remaining 6 games. Of course, these are all just predictions, but looking at the teams that Forest have got to play, you would imagine that that's what they would do. They've got Stourbridge, Hull, Derby, West Brom, Liverpool Feds as 5 of their remaining 6 games. So it's all teams that are down towards the bottom half of the table or just on that mid-table in Feds' case. The only other game is against Burnley, which is why you'd think 15 at least, because Burnley away from home might be able to do something with Forest going up there. So if Forest were to get the 15 points, that would put them on 57. Wolves' max is 57. Burnley's max is 58. So it relies, if Forest do what you would think they should do, that Wolves and Burnley both go perfect. Wolves would then have to rely on goal difference. Burnley would then be able to win by a point. Wolves do play Burnley. Burnley have also got to play Rugby again. They've got a relatively difficult run in comparison to the other sides. Forest and Wolves is about identical. They've both got to play Burnley again. So I think particularly after that week has gone where Forest were able to beat Rugby in the week, which we covered on last week's show, and then they were able to beat Wolves, draw with Wolves at the weekend. They've got through that week with no injuries, and they haven't lost any ground, and I think that was the big one for Forest. Down towards the bottom then, and see, the bottom 3 didn't play. Hull City lost. Derby and West Brom didn't play. So it's all very much the same down towards the bottom. Halifax, of course, as they said there in their statement, trying to maintain Tier 3 status. It's still a 9-point gap. They've still got 8 games to go. So it's a bit too early to really say anything down towards the bottom of the Northern Premier Division. Southern Premier Division then. So Ipswich Town beating Exeter City by 2-1. That was the huge game towards the top of the table from this weekend. Sophie Gillies with the only goal for Exeter City in the first half. Sophie Peskett on the half-hour mark for Ipswich Town. Ella Rutherford 4 minutes from time getting what would prove to be the game winner for Ipswich Town. Milton Keynes Dons against Watford was postponed, so there was only one other game, which was Oxford United beating Plymouth Argyle by just a 0-0. Phoebe Poole in the 4th minute with what proved to be the only goal of the game. And what that means then for the Southern Premier Division table, it's all changed at the top really. Ipswich Town back on that top spot, level on points with #United, but with a goal difference significantly better, and they have 2 games in hand, so they've really got the opportunity to get a long way out in front. Oxford United go above Exeter City after their win over Plymouth Argyle, and Exeter City drop down to 4th with that defeat to Ipswich Town. Only other team then not in the top 4 that played at the weekend, Plymouth Argyle, remain in 10th. They are 2 points clear of Billericay Town in 11th. Again, we start to look at run-ins. You would imagine that Ipswich can pull themselves to be 6 points clear. If you look at the games that they've still got to play, I know there's still 8 of them, but there are plenty against the teams towards the bottom. There's 2 against Gwalior United, there's 1 against Cheltenham Town, there's 1 against Plymouth. Well, that's 4 games, and then so there's MK Dons, there's Cheltenham, there's Plymouth, there's 2 against Gwalior, so that's 5 games out of their remaining 8 are against teams that are in the bottom 5 of the table. You would imagine that they would win all of those games, and then you're looking at #United going, well, if Ipswich are going to get another 15 at least, which you would imagine they will, that puts them on 51. #United can only get to a maximum of 54. That includes beating Ipswich Town, but then Ipswich have still got 2 extra games that # don't have in order to get back above them again, and with the goal difference they'd only need to win 1 of them. It is looking very good now for Ipswich Town. #United, it looks like they might be the bridesmaid and not the bride for another season after missing out last year as well. Down towards the bottom, Milton Keynes Dons, their max is 19 with 6 games to go. It is possible that they go down this weekend. They will go down if they lose and Plymouth beat Billericay Town. So we could have our first relegation this weekend from the Southern Premier Division. No games in Division 1 Midlands this week, so we'll go to Division 1 North. AFC Fylde 1, Middlesbrough 1. A great point there for Fylde, but Middlesbrough dropping points yet again. I was looking on my stat sheet, and Middlesbrough actually have 5 draws away from home this season. Just bring their stats up again here on my screen. So Middlesbrough, they've been doing well. They've been ranking highly at home. At home, they've won 7, drawn 1. Away, it's 2 wins, 5 draws, and a loss. Goals scored away from home is 11th. In Division 1 North compared to everywhere else where they're doing so well. That is for 59th out of 72 in the whole FAWNL. And you look at the league table, which we'll come on to shortly, and if some of those draws had been turned into wins, Middlesbrough could be a long way clear at the top of the table, but take nothing away from AFC Fylde, who were leading at half-time thanks to Demi Devereaux's 40th minute goal. Middlesbrough then pulling it back in the second half. Chorley, a good 3-2 victory over Durham Sestra. 2 for Molly Wood, 1 for Ellie Cook for Chorley. Erin Brown getting a brace for the visitors, but Chorley take all 3 points. And then last night, Durham Sestra lost by 4 goals 3-0 at home to Norton and Stockton Ancients. A hat-trick for Bianca Owens and one for Shannon Reed mean that Norton get a crucial 3 points for them. You'd had to have been following either of those sides on social media to know that game was happening, because there was absolutely nothing from the FAWNL prior to that game. They have now, actually, while I'm recording this episode, they have posted the result. So they didn't post anything at all about the game taking place, but they have posted the result. We'll see if they post a league table before the end of this recording. But yeah, they almost completely missed a game, which is, to be honest, outrageous. So yeah, Norton Stockton Ancients, a valuable 2 points for them away at Durham Cestral. What it means is they've climbed a couple of places. Obviously, the bottom of Division 1 North is so tight. But so Norton Stockton Ancients, that 3 points lifts them up to 8th. They are now 4 points clear, and they do have 3 games in hand over Doncaster Rovers Bells. And it is going to be a very difficult run-in for Doncaster as well. They've got to gain some significant points. The games coming up against Stockport County is going to be huge. Then they've got Cheadle Town, which is going to be tough. Middlesbrough as well, also difficult. Huddersfield in 5th. You've got to look for Doncaster, really. Stockport County this weekend, and then a game against AFC Fylde, of course, who are still wanting to survive themselves. They're only 4 points away from safety. Their run-in is Norton Stockton Ancients this weekend, so a great opportunity for them. Then that game against Huddersfield Town, who are currently in 5th. They then face Stockport, who are 9th. They've got Doncaster, who are in 11th. Durham Cestral at home, who are out of form at the moment. And then Cheadle to finish the season off. So it's very close and very tight at the bottom of the table. York City arguably got a slightly more difficult game. They run in. They've got Barnsley, then Durham, Huddersfield, that one game Norton and Stockport, and then Leeds United to finish off. What's clear here at the bottom of Division 1 North, all these teams around the bottom have still got to play each other. There are many, many really important games coming up in the bottom of Division 1 North. What's also notable is, you'll notice when I was reading those fixtures out there, one team that kept coming up is the current top of the table, Cheadle Town Stingers, who have got Fylde, Norton, Doncaster, Barnsley, all in the bottom half still to play. Their other games, Chorley at home and Huddersfield away. So Cheadle Town Stingers look in a very good position at the moment, particularly considering you compare their fixtures to the likes of Middlesbrough. They're kind of the same, but Middlesbrough particularly away from home at the moment, like Huddersfield away in 5th, Durham away, they're currently in 6th, Barnsley away in 7th. They've got home games against teams towards the bottom, but their away form has just not quite been there. And Chorley as well, 6 games to go for them. It's that huge game this weekend against Cheadle, and then again it's all very much the same sort of thing. Barnsley, Stockport, Huddersfield, Leeds and Norton. So who knows what is going to happen in Division 1 North. Division 1 South East, this is going to be very quick to go through because there was only one game, Queen's Park Rangers against London Bees. London Bees winning by 3-1. Goal for Queen's Park Rangers to Grace Stanley. Goals for London Bees, Shamoy Campbell, Millie Isherwood and Samantha Gabion with the goals for London Bees that gave them the win. It means they're up to 4th, climbing above Actonians, who of course didn't play. Queen's Park Rangers remain in 6th. Everything is the same down towards the bottom. Rail Bedford remain at the top then, 2 games in hand and a point clear of Norwich City. Chatham are also just a point behind Rail Bedford. Rail Bedford have 1 in hand on them though. Down towards the bottom, 11 points is the gap for London Seaward. It is possible they go down this weekend, but you would imagine maybe quite unlikely because Chesham United would have to win and they have got Norwich City. So you would think that Norwich would win that game. But yeah, Division 1 South East, not a huge amount to talk about. Division 1 South West then. Significant results here. Abingdon United, that was a huge game towards the bottom for them against Portishead Town. They win by 4-2. They were 4-0 up at half time, but then finished the game with 10. Charlotte Dealey, 33rd minute. Lauren May, 36th minute. And 2 for Molly Ligo Jackson, which apparently was the 44th and the 50th minute. Not sure how she scored in the 50th minute if they were 4-0 up at half time. But there we go. And for Portishead Town, Emily Lindsay, 47th minute and 60th minute. Bournemouth Sports lose to Bristol Rovers by 3-1. Katie Kingshot had given Bournemouth Sports the lead in this one after 11 minutes. But Megan Jarvis in the 36th, Nia Rees in first half stoppage time, and then Jarvis again 15 minutes from time meant Bristol Rovers took all 3 points. And Southampton women get their first points of the season. Yes, I know they got one earlier in the season that was then taken away from them, but a 63rd minute Chloe Ball strike means they beat Keynsham Town by 1-0. Is the great escape on for Southampton women's? I think yes it is. Let's look at the South West table. So obviously the movement is all down towards the bottom. Bristol Rovers beat Bournemouth Sports, but they stay in 5th with that win. Nobody else towards the top played. Let's focus down towards the bottom. We know the top. Bournemouth are going to win the league. Towards the bottom then, Abingdon United are now 9th. They are 4 points clear of Portishead Town after beating them by 4-2. Bournemouth Sports have dropped down to 10th. They are 2 points ahead of Portishead Town, and they have a game in hand. Southampton Women's have fewer games than anybody else in that race, but they've got their first win. They are now 6 points away from safety. And if you have a look at Southampton Women's running, 5 games to go. One has still got to be put in. That's against AFC Bournemouth. We'll ignore that. 4 other games that Southampton Women have. They have Bournemouth Sports away, Portishead Town at home, Abingdon United at home, Bridgewater United away. Other than that one game against Bournemouth, which is, for want of a better phrase, a bit of a write-off for them, they have 3 games against the teams directly above them, and then 1 more game against the team in 7th, who would also be directly above them were it not for Maidenhead just filling in that little gap. Southampton Women's have just hosted 6th place Keynsham Town and won. They are now going to be full of confidence and believe that they can turn this around. If they can get results against Bournemouth, against Portishead, against Abingdon United, they could end up on 12 points and have a chance of staying up. It's a big ask, of course it's a big ask, but there will be that belief now having got that win. Portishead Town have kind of more difficult games. They've got Swindon, who are 3rd. They've also got Bournemouth, who are 1st. They've got Moneyfields, who are 2nd. They've got Bristol Rovers, who are 5th. Yes, they've got a game against Bournemouth Sport, as it guarantees points somewhere. It guarantees that the cut-off line will be at least 10. And so Southampton Women's will need, because of their goal difference, 8 points from their last 5 games. They will need to win all of those games that I've already mentioned. But they will now have belief that they can do that. Bournemouth Sports, similar situation. They have those 2 games. Then they've got Moneyfields. They've got Bristol Rovers. Yes, they've got Maidenhead United and Bridgewater as well. They've got opportunities to pick points up. But Southampton Women's will believe. And isn't that just exciting as we go towards the back end of the season? Almost now. The end of the season is on the whiteboard behind me. Those long-term viewers of the show will know about the whiteboard that's on the back wall. We are only now 2.5 weeks away from the end of the season being on that board. That's how close we are to the end, but there is still an awful lot still to go. So, let's look at fixtures then. We'll start in the Northern Premier Division. A lot off with International Week this weekend. There's only 2. Derby County against Rugby Borough, 8th against 5th. Wolverhampton Wanderers in 2nd, hosting Stoke City in 4th. That is the big one. You feel that Wolves must win. If Wolves fail to win, they'll have then played a game more than Forest, and they'll be 3 points back. That game in hand for Forest is next week, but that's against Stourbridge, who are 11th. And I feel if Wolves don't win against Stoke, then you're looking at a 6-point gap and a worse goal difference with 5 games to go. And that is going to be a big ask for Wolves to make that up. They'll be relying on Forest dropping more points than I can see them doing. Stoke City, though, they are only 5 points back from Forest. Stoke will go second if they win, and then that will be set up then for those kind of top two. It might not be top two come the cup final in a few weeks' time, but battling it out for the trophy, and then maybe also for the league title as well. I don't think you can discount Stoke yet. Those top 4 teams are very close. Rugby Borough, they're 10 points now behind Stoke. Don't really need to worry about them, even if they've got 2 games in hand, I feel. But yeah, huge game. Wolves against Stoke. That's the one to keep an eye on. Southern Premier Division then, 5 games, and we've already alluded to it. That big one is down towards the bottom. Plymouth Argyle hosting Billericay Town. A win for Plymouth Argyle, and what you would imagine is the likely defeat for Milton Keynes Dons at home to #United would relegate Milton Keynes Dons at the end of Sunday. But also it would put a big gap between Billericay Town, who will only have 4 games to go after this weekend, and safety. Those remaining 4 games for Billericay Town, one is against MK Dons, then it's Lewes, Oxford United and AFC Wimbledon. So possibly you're looking at that and going, might only be another 3 points for Billericay after this weekend. If it's already a 4-point gap, then that is a big ask for them. Elsewhere, Cheltenham against Watford. Cheltenham in 9th, Watford 5th. Exeter City against Wimbledon, 4th against 6th. Exeter maybe now with only 6 games to go and being 6 plus goal difference back, it's too much for them. Lewes against Oxford, 7th against 3rd, and then those other 2 that we've already mentioned. Division 1 Midlands then. Said we'll have a bit of a closer look at this because we didn't do it in the when we were looking at the results, because there were no Midlands results. Barnes Women's against Sutton Coldfield Town, 6th against 8th. Lincoln United in 9th against Leafield Athletic, who are 2nd. The other huge game again, Loughborough Lightning hosting Northampton Town. Loughborough a point behind Northampton. They've got 2 games in hand. This is a huge game towards the top of the table. Notts County against Worcester City, 7th against 10th. Peterborough United taking on Solihull Moors, 4th against 11th. Boldmere St Michael's, 5th against Lincoln City in 12th. Lincoln cannot go down this weekend even if Worcester City win, because the gap would only be 10 points with 4 games left to go. But Worcester City have a great chance to put themselves basically safe. And the reason I say that is, if you look at Solihull Moors' remaining fixtures, they have 6 games left to go. And you look at the fixtures and you wonder where they are going to get points from. And the reason I say that is because Solihull Moors have Peterborough this weekend, who are 4th. Then Loughborough, who are 3rd. Boldmere, who are 5th. Leafield, who are 2nd. Northampton, who are 1st. And then Notts County on the final day of the season, who are currently 7th. So Solihull Moors, with 6 games to go, have to play the top 5, who, other than Boldmere St Michael's, are all fighting for that spot in the Northern Premier Division next season. And then it's Notts County on the final day. It is very plausible that Solihull Moors do not get another point this season. They need to take something away from a title fighting side. The reason I say they need to take something from a title fighting side is, and again, nothing against Lincoln City here, Worcester City host Lincoln City on the final day of the season. You would think that because every single team has gone to Lincoln City and got something, might not be a win, but it's something, that Worcester will do the same on the last day of the season. Therefore, Solihull Moors are going to need to win probably the game against Notts County and then take points away from the teams fighting it out at the top. And if I'm honest, I'm not sure I can see Solihull Moors taking points from the teams fighting towards the top. Therefore, I do believe it's plausible that Solihull Moors do not get another point this season, and therefore relegation in Division 1 Midlands may already be set. Lincoln City, I think we could probably all agree, are going to fill one of those spots. Lincoln City can't catch Lincoln United, so it's going to be Worcester City or Solihull Moors. And as I said, I think looking at Solihull Moors' running compared to Worcester City's running, who have got the likes of Barnsley, Notts County, Sutton Coldfield Town, Lincoln City, I would much rather, even with Solihull Moors' game in hand, be in Worcester City's shoes than Solihull Moors's. So that's the situation in Division 1 Midlands. Division 1 North then. The big game is Cheadle Town against Chorley. First against third. It's a 3-point gap already. If Cheadle were to win this at home, that becomes a 6-point gap with 5 games to go. It'll be a big ask for Chorley, particularly as we looked at when we were doing the results, the games that Cheadle Town have got left where you would expect them to pick up all 3 points. The likes of the game against Doncaster, the game against Norton, the game against Cheadle, that's another 9. If Cheadle Town were to win the game this weekend, you're talking about another 12 points. That puts them on 47. It would mean Chorley would have to be perfect with their remaining 5 games just to get level, and then you're hoping that Cheadle don't do anything else. It's one of those pivotal fixtures this weekend. Elsewhere, again, it's really important down towards the bottom. So Barnsley are taking on York City. That is 7th against 10th. York City on 10th on 15 points because Norton Stockton Ancients are now 8th on 16 points. Durham Cestra against Leeds United is 6th against 4th. Huddersfield Town against Middlesbrough, that is 5th against 2nd. Norton Stockton Ancients then in 8th, but only 5 points above AFC Fylde, who are bottom of the table on 12, and that is a game that again could switch everything. AFC Fylde will be in the relegation zone at the end of the weekend, but they could only be 1 point away, and Stockport County currently then in 9th against Doncaster Rovers Bells, who are in 11th. Again, it's another weekend where everything could change in Division 1 North. Division 1 South East, Actonians against London Bees is 5th against 4th. Dulwich Hamlet against Cambridge United, 9th against 8th. Both of those sides are safe. Queen's Park Rangers against Chatham Town, 6th against 3rd. Norwich City in 2nd take on Chesham United in 10th. The big game this weekend, Ashford Town in 12th, London Seaward in 11th. Both teams on 4 points. Both teams 11 points away from safety. Both teams you would think are going to go down. Who's going to get the right bragging rights here? Who's going to avoid finishing bottom of the table? So, as I said, both of these sides, London Seaward, their max is 19. They can only catch Chesham, and even then it's very unlikely. Ashford Town have still got 8 games to go, so technically they could still get to 28 and finish 5th, but they're not going to, let's be honest. It is just going to be really important for Ashford, I think, to win this game to give themselves a bit of belief. They have other games that could be winnable for them. Dulwich Hamlet, Cambridge United coming up as well. I mean, they kind of need to get those done early because then it's Chatham Town, QPR, London Bees, Actonians, all teams in the top half of the table when it comes to that. London Seaward, is this going to be their last opportunity to get points? QPR, Actonians, Rail Bedford and Sudbury after this, they're probably not going to get enough points to get themselves above Chesham. So it's a game between the bottom two. They will probably both end up going down, but of course there is no guarantee of that. Yeah, that's going to be the game to keep an eye on. If London Seaward lose, their max will then become 16. So if Chesham get a what I will say is a shock victory against Norwich City, because Norwich City are on the up, although Andy Cook has just won Manager of the Month it was for January, wasn't it? So the Manager of the Month curse could hit now, and Chesham could get a win. Dan McNamara of Wolves getting Manager of the Month in Tier 3, by the way. Yeah, it looks as though it's going to be a matter of when, not if, at the bottom of Division 1 South East. But I think it's not going to happen this weekend. South West then, full programme of fixtures in South West as well. Portishead Town against Swindon Town. That's 11th against 3rd. Abingdon United, Maidenhead United 9th against 8th. Bournemouth Sports Southampton Women's 10th against 12th. Bridgewater against AFC Bournemouth 7th against 1st. Bristol Rovers against Moneyfields 5th against 2nd. And Worthing against Keynsham Town is 4th against 6th. So yeah, really, again, the big game is towards the bottom. Southampton Women's, can they build upon that win they had last week and get even closer to safety? Are they going to make it an incredibly interesting end to the season? I kind of hope. I'm in two camps here. I either hope that they stay safe, or they get relegated by more than a point plus goal difference. Because I don't want to see a relegation. And it kind of goes the same with Billericay and that home walkover with Gwalior United as well. You don't want to see a relegation decided by something off the pitch, i.e. Southampton Women's here having their point deducted. If they now finish level with the side that stays safe, and that point would have meant that they stayed safe, that's going to be leave a bitter taste. Solihull Moors, they were defeated, but they got a point deducted, but they're further off. Billericay Town as well, if they finish within 6 points of Gwalior United, because the 3 that were taken off them, the 3 that were given to Gwalior United, if they get relegated but are within 6 points of Gwalior United, that's going to leave a bit of a bitter taste as well. But yeah, it seems as though the big games for the most part are towards the bottom of the divisions this weekend. And that will about do it for this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. So coming up then, see on Switch Sport this Sunday, it's Barnsley against Sutton Coldfield Town. Barnsley Women's against Sutton Coldfield Town in Division 1 Midlands. Commentary on Switch Radio 1:55pm, 107.5 FM DAB, and online there for commentary of that one on Switch Sport. But yeah, I'll be back next week looking at that busy weekend in the FAWNL, and we get even closer to the end of the season. Will we see our first relegation this weekend? Who knows? Goodbye.